Welcome to the Global MBA Student Experience webinar. This is a special webinar designed to really address all the questions and comments that you may have in terms of understanding what the Global MBA is all about. My name is Lan Snell. I'm an Associate Professor in Marketing. I'm also the Academic Program Director for the Global MBA. I've been with Macquarie Business School for just over a year and a half, and it's been an absolute pleasure in working with and bringing about this very, I have to say, innovative model of learning and a very disruptive model when we're talking about an MBA. More on that in a minute. I very much welcome all the people that have joined us tonight. We've had a bit of a slight hiccup, so my apologies in the front end. We are now broadcasting live. We have approximately 120 people that have registered all around the world. So hello from wherever you are, maybe joining us either tonight or in the morning. We have some very special guests available and also joining us tonight, and they are in fact current students of the Global MBA. And I will ask our students to do a brief introduction of themselves. Again, my apologies as we've had a bit of a technical glitch, so we'll just do a bit of a repeat. So I'm going to hand it over to, say, Michael in the beginning, just to do a brief introduction of yourself, Michael, to everyone else.
Hi, thanks, Lan. Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Michael. I live and work in Sydney, and I was a student from the first term of the Global MBA, and I've completed 6 subjects since, and I'm a political advisor in the New South Wales government.
Thanks, Michael. Sabine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sabine. I have just joined the Global MBA a couple of semesters, not semesters, but units away. I live in Sydney and work in Sydney, and I'm the head of a department and needed just some extra bit of learning to help me through those difficult times at times when you're managing teams. So yes, that's me.
Thanks, Sabine. And we were actually saying earlier with Sabine that she's about to hop on a flight to Zurich on her way on holidays. How dare she? But we are in the middle of, term 6 for the unit, and you're enrolled in 1 unit at the moment. And I mean, would you like just spend just a minute or so just talking about the flexibility in that experience that enables you to do this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing is flexible. If I feel like learning at 1 o'clock in the morning, I can. If I feel like learning at lunchtime, I can. If I feel like walking home and learning, I can. There's a multitude of options that you can do, from listening to reading to podcasts to, it's just unbelievable for me, the flexibility, and I can just jump on a plane and download, the lectures and listen to them. So I don't have to be anywhere at any time. I can do whatever, really, within the parameters of the subject. I can do whatever I want and move around, which is greatly helpful.
Right. Yeah, and we'll be tapping into that flexibility as well as we go. Thank you very much, Sabine. I'm going to throw it over to Gary. Please introduce yourself, Gary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gary Pon. I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa. I was part of the first cohort in the GMBA, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience so far. So I'm on my 4th subject. I've eased my way into this. And I'm quite excited to share more about the GMBA with all of you tonight.
Thank you very much, Gary. And finally, we have Sylvester joining us from Paris.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Sylvester. I'm based in Paris at the moment, and I'm investment officer in the sector of development finance. I joined the program last term, the term 5, and up to now I took 2 units. And I'm enjoying the program.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Sylvester. So just for everyone else's information, what we're doing, although we are broadcasting live from Sydney, Australia, we are also recording this session such that people who have registered but are unable to attend for whatever reason can pick up the recording. Also very actively encourage you to share your comments or questions. This webinar is designed for you, so please make the most out of it. We've got a very experienced panel here that can share their experience both as a professional in terms of what they do, and also their professional actually consuming this product, which is a global MBA, and how that works for them. So please draw on the experience as we go. Again, this session is designed to help you understand the ins and outs of the global MBA. So what we're going to do is that we're going to commit to a hard stop at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Board, Australian Sydney time. And we're going to go through and share a deck with you so that it really does cover and give you a very good overview of the structure of the program, the unique selling propositions, the model, and then of course the learning experience as a student throughout that. That's probably the most important component of it. So without further ado, let's continue with the slides. So I'm just going to go through. When we talk about the global MBA, we always talk about three unique value propositions. One is the future-focused capability. The second one is a stackable model. And the third one, it's affordability. I just want to pause here and share with you our design-led principle when we came about in re-engineering the MBA to produce this product here. Our design-led philosophy was really quite clearly simply this, and that was we wanted to achieve and deliver a very diverse, so it's diversity, accessibility and inclusion were the philosophy that was guiding us in terms of the design of this program. We also know that when we look at the global market, international market for the MBA, and the MBA is an internationally transportable degree, that we can see some interesting trends happening. In Australia, certainly there are 42 providers, and what we can see is that across the sector there's been a steady decline in enrolments in MBAs, and I'm going to have to be honest and say that this has been a worrying trend for universities. And so when we consult with our industry partners to understand what are the major attributes for perhaps this decline in growth or demand, some of the more salient dimensions that come up include things such as the perceived value of the MBA has lost its shine, if you like. The relevancy and currency has been questioned, particularly when you consider that when MBAs were introduced into the market, they were really reflective of an organisation of the past in that they were silo-driven, marketing, accounting, economics, etc. Whereas when we look at the labour market today and how it's been constantly disrupted by technology, organisations themselves have been disrupted in terms of their structural design. So we're moving away from that siloed hierarchical approach to more fluid, adaptable organisations that are looking for lean sort of solutions in how we go about anticipating and addressing problems for the future. Not only organisations have been impacted, but also the nature of work and workers themselves. And so the labour market, we can see all these significant trends that are happening. Against this background, the MBA product has remained fairly static. We'll have to be honest and say that. And so therefore, all business schools, all universities are looking at how we might re-engineer the program, the MBA, to actually reflect and suit and anticipate the labour market of the future. And hence the future work narrative comes into play here. So that hopefully gives you a sort of an overview, understanding of the changes and the concerns and the challenges in relation to the MBA and why we've introduced the burning platform for this new global MBA. So let me now address the three unique selling propositions, value propositions, if you like. Let's go to the first one, which is the future-focused capabilities. And before I dive into the curriculum overview, I do want to say that in guiding our redesign or re-engineering the program, we have a very active advisory board. I think this is a really important thing to bring about beginning, because everything we do is guided by our industry partners. It must be. We consider industry as our end buyers in this. Our students obviously consume the service and they're a very important stakeholder. But in fact, it is industry that the end buyers who are actually promoting our students, who are giving them other employment opportunities. And so when we ask them what it is in terms of their hiring expectations for the mid to senior end of the experience pipeline, we listen very closely to what those outputs are in terms of the hiring expectations. Let me just briefly walk you through our advisory board members. And so we have Yasmin, who is currently the CEO of Skills IQ. So they deal with essentially transformational skills, upskilling, reskilling all the time. Yasmin was previously the New South Wales Commissioner for Small Business. So she comes with very strong understanding of the public background as well. Warren is in fact the chair of our board. Warren is the ex-CEO of Medtronic, and he is the founder of PillCam, which is, you swallow the pill and it kind of gives you a diagnostic report of the insides of your gut health. And Warren is very well connected, and his space is really in the medtech space, which is clearly a growth area for wherever you look. We have Kerry Kwan, who is the founder of Mums & Co. and is one of Australia's fastest growing startup, and it focuses on supporting and enabling female entrepreneurs. We have Giles, who is a social bond investor. We have Anne, who is working for Sydney Council, and her specialty is the built environment. We have Karen, who is a partner for Deloitte Digital. We have Catherine, who is a researcher. Her area of research specialises in the ageing workforce. We have Mike, and he is the regional head of ANZ. Spends most of his time in Bangalore because of the work that they've been doing on experimenting with supply chain innovations. We have Juliet. She's also a partner at Deloitte, and she specialises in human capital. We have Warren, I beg your pardon, Peter, and Peter is the CEO of a global recruitment firm called Russell Reynolds. They specialise in C-level appointments and also board appointments. We have Bernadette, and Bernadette comes from a health, she's a PhD doctor. She has a specialty in health services in oncology. She currently works at the Health Commission. We have Daniel, and Daniel is with Cochlear. And Cochlear are a partner of the Global MBA. They are based, in fact, on campus here in terms of their headquarters. They are the firm that is responsible for the hearing intervention, a very unique and innovative hearing solution for hearing impaired people. We have Yem, who's again a serial entrepreneur, a very successful one, and in that she has now penetrated the food market for 8 to 12-year-olds. We have Gavin. Unfortunately, Gavin has passed away last year, so Gavin is the ex-CEO of Austrax, but he brought a great deal of wealth of experience in terms of the governance when we were first considering the MBA. So we're very grateful for Gavin's time that he spent with us. We have Hannah. Hannah is in fact one of our youngest board members. She is a consultant at Bain & Co. And it really is important to have a very diverse spread of ages across our board representation. And we have Ian from Gartner, who is a Vice President of Data Analytics at Gartner International. Another recent board member that has joined us is David Bowie, not to be confused with the late singer David Bowie. David Bowie is, in fact, the CEO of SAS Australia, New Zealand. And again, we've partnered with SAS, given that SAS is one of the global giants when we're looking at data analytics. So I hope you can see from that we have not only, when we're talking about diversity and accessibility and inclusion, this has to be represented in everything we do. So from the get-go with our advisory board members, you can see hopefully one of the first observations that you take from this is that our advisory members themselves reflect not only a broad, diverse capability component to them, but obviously there's a spirit of age, ethnic diversity, experience, and cultural diversity. So, and cognitive diversity, and that's exactly what we want in terms of making an optimal product. So that's who we're guided by. Let's move on now to the next slide. Okay, so when we talk about one of the first points of difference, this is about the future focused capabilities. I have to say, in doing your homework when you're considering an MBA, and I will ask our current students to share their thoughts when they were doing their due diligence in which MBA to select. I wonder how important the curriculum was in that decision-making thing. I'll just brief go through our curriculum, and then I'm going to ask our students to comment upon that. I'll let you know that if an MBA product does not have curriculum that addresses emergent technologies and its impact on how we do business, you know, I have to say that it lacks currency, it lacks relevancy, right? I also have to say that if it doesn't speak to the future-focused suite of capabilities that have been identified consistently through the literature, including the World Economic Forum, including all the Big Four consulting reports on what that desired skill set looks like, well, again, it lacks relevancy and currency. So what we did was we obviously consulted the literature, we consulted our advisory board, and we built this curriculum around 6 key specializations or capabilities. So you have strategizing, leading, analyzing, influencing, adapting, and then of course the capstone is what we call problem solving. So each specialization consists of 4 units underneath it, and it makes up 24 units in total. This is a master's level program. So the curriculum itself, it does directly reflect the outcomes that what we're looking for in terms of future-proofing ourselves. I'm going to pause at that point and ask if any one of our current students would like to comment about the importance of the curriculum in guiding their decision. Michael, please.
Thanks, Lan. Yeah, I had 3 criteria when I was putting together the list of MBAs I was considering. And one of them was, is an MBA still worth it? When in reviewing the curriculum for the Global MBA, I found it was easily the most future focused. And in fact, there's a slide in maybe potentially this presentation, or certainly ones you've done previously, which is a summary of every single course and all their categories. And for me, that is basically, I see that as a CV from 2020, or a CV that I'll adopt once I finally complete the course. It's so future focused and adaptable and modern that it was one of the key reasons I selected the Global MBA, because it's so thoroughly applicable to today's business world. When I was looking at some of the other courses and from other universities, it was very traditional, you do HR1, then you do HR2. Even the names of the courses we do is modern and adaptable. So that was my experience.
Mm. So I just wanted to summarize. Mike, would you say that the curriculum was one of the top 3 considerations in selecting an MBA?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the curriculum, whether the school was good, so whether the university was of quality, and also the cost. And so the Global MBA met all those categories. I think when I was looking it up, it was now 6 subjects ago, so it's hard for me to remember, but Macquarie University MGSM is in the Financial Times. I think it's even in the top 50 or the top 100 out of tens of thousands of MBAs. And certainly from a cost perspective, it was easily one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive. And then the final one was curriculum, which it ticked the box for as well.
Yeah, that's great, because I'm looking at some of the questions that are coming in, and a couple of them do refer to the global ranking of the Global MBA. Now, I'll just have to pause here and explain this a little bit further. Michael was absolutely right. The MGSM, we offer 2 MBA programs at MGSM, or Macquarie Business School. The first one is our face-to-face MBA that has been hugely successful. In fact, at the moment, it still ranks in the top 100 in the FT rankings. So it comes in at 74 against hundreds and hundreds of business schools, as Michael mentioned earlier. In the Australian market, there are 42 providers, and we are in the top 3. So our competition in the Australian market, our MBA is with AGSM or UNSW, and also Melbourne Business School. So of those 3, we're in the top 3. We jostle for the top 3 positions. So we're very well ranked. But with the Global MBA, obviously that's coming to the market in May this year. And so therefore we need to actually produce a cohort first to participate in any of the rankings. Let me assure you though that when I do submit our application for the rankings, we will be in the top 3. I might take some bets out there if we may not even take the top 1 out of that, because we know the criteria very well. Thank you very much, Michael. Would any other students like to add to the curriculum component in terms of the importance of it guiding your decision as to which MBA? Gary?
Yes, certainly, Lan. I'd really like to reiterate what Michael shared. In the workplace, we're hearing words like digital disruption, data and analytics, digital transformation. And when I researched for MBAs, I really was looking for an MBA that had that edge to it. Coming from a technology background, I really appreciated the way GMBA had structured the program around that, because I want to study the MBA and get that qualification for the future, and that's important to me. And I think in the world, it's what is required to be able to be sustainable and competitive for the coming decades.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Okay, so then we might jump to the next slide here. I'm also conscious of time. So that was a really brief, obviously a very brief overview of the curriculum. There's all this information is provided in greater detail through our website as well. I'm just going to take you through some of the dimensions of what you can expect. So this slide takes you through, let me just get rid of this view here. In terms of the completion path, you can expect a 20-month sort of duration if you are taking at least 1 to 2 units per term. You can obviously accelerate this. We offer between 4 to 8 units in each term. We're running 6 terms per year, and you pay as you go. So the fee, you're only paying for the units that you undertake. So it's a pay-as-you-go model. The tuition fees are sitting at Australian dollars 13.75, or the equivalent in US would be $1,000 per course. The total, if you take out the degree, 24 units, that will be 33,000 Australian dollars, or $20,000 in total. How it works is that we have 6 terms per year, and within each term there are 6 weeks to the term. So I like to call them sprints. It's very intense. I won't mix my words, and you can ask our students about their experience in how from the get-go we actually are right into the material, and we'll go through that in the next slide. So this is a really good sort of, I guess, summary of the different paces we've come up. The team has come up with 4 different paces that you can actually elect to complete your degree. So the accelerated pace means that you can do this within 14 months. So that's 4 units per term. That's a really big load. Or I will have to say that this is possible if you suspend life, right? So most of our students, if not 99% of our students, are working full-time with very demanding roles, traveling a lot with family commitments or caring obligations. So this is not possible for many of our students. But if you find yourself in a position where there's a bit of a gap or there's a sabbatical opportunity, I do know of 2 students who are Global MBA students who are doing this pace at the moment because they've got the opportunity to take a bit of time out of work to focus full-time on their studies. And so they've been able to accelerate their study. So that option is there. A fast pace is 2 to 3 units per term. A steady pace would be about 2 units, and a light pace will be 1 to 2 units. And I think the light pace is probably the most sustainable one if you've got a full-time role, and that would be my advice if that is your situation. I'm going to throw it over to Sabine. Sabine, you've got a fairly full-time role at the moment, and you're doing, is that 1 unit per term? Is that right?
Yeah, I do just 1 unit per term, and possibly also because I really enjoy just really getting into it, because you can expand these units to however intensity that you want. So if you just want to complete them, that's one thing, but then there is so much there that you can go further and further and further, and it's really stimulating. So I think one unit so far, the 2 units that I've done, it's just there's so much there, and it pays out to just spend a bit of time, because the time as such is already short, but then at least you can really spend time on the content, because there's just so much interesting things in there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make there, Sabine. I mean, because the thing is that you get what you get. The more you get put into it is the more that you get out of it, right? I would always suggest to students that find out who are you as a student. What are your expectations in terms of the outcome that you're wanting? Is this going to be both a personal thing and also professional? I suggest probably both. But if you are a type of student that really are interested in the learning itself, and immersing yourself in the learning, that effort will pay off in terms of the grades, but also in terms of the optimization of the benefits, right? So I guess that's your point earlier, or you just coast through it, and it's completely up to you. Okay, I might move on to the next slide now. This is, I think, a fairly useful slide in giving you an understanding of, the cadence of the 6-week period. So each term is, as I said earlier, 6 weeks. We start off at week 0 and this is where, you know, your enrollment happens, where payment is due. And usually what we do is we release the dashboard, the unit. All our units are offered through Coursera, by the way, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But Coursera is simply a learning platform that we are delivering this degree through. So you should find that your units are available at least 1, if not 2 weeks prior to the term going live. So that should give you a bit more time to actually understand what is ahead of you. But when we start in week 1, we absolutely start. And so, you know, there's in some cases, depending on the staggering or the scheduling of the units and how many units you're doing, it could be that your live unit is, you know, on Monday or Tuesday. So I know we've had lots of feedback from students saying that, you know, can we stagger it? We're doing our best, but, you know, I guess my message to everyone, so that I'm managing everyone's expectations as you consider whether the Global MBA is for you, is that we expect you to start from the get-go. So if you have that expectation in mind, well, then there should be no disappointment or no surprises, right? So what we are asking you, and I will also jump to our students in a minute, is the guideline is about 10 to 12 hours per week of study. So every week there will be a live class, a webinar. So this is a live event that we're having right now, and it's probably not too dissimilar to some of the classes that you'll be having live during the units that you undertake. Certainly there'll be an academic leading it. There'll be breakout sessions, as you see the panel here in terms of our students. Let's say that would be replication of the classroom environment that you can expect in the unit. That live event or live webinar, class, whatever language you want to use, will be in 2020 available in 2 different time slots. One early in the morning to make sure that out the Northern Hemisphere it's convenient time for them, and one scheduled in late afternoon, early evening, Southern Hemisphere time. Of course, they will be recorded for your convenience as well. I'm going to pause here and ask perhaps Sylvester to comment about what that guideline of 10 to 12 hours a week looks like, because this is a frequently asked question that we get, you know, how much time should I devote per unit? Sylvester, would you like to share your experience in this?
Yes, the 12 hours per week is what I'm planning every week for study times. And for me, what is the most important is the flexibility of your time comparing to our working duties. So most of the time, regarding myself, I'm studying in the morning, listening all the videos on the platform, and once I'm returning home in the evening, I can do all the homework and the quiz on the platform.
Thank you. Yeah, so that sounds like it's a fairly good realistic timeline guidance for people to devote per unit.
Yes, definitely, it's realistic.
Okay, and obviously how people fit that round their working day and then also family time and weekends, it's obviously up to the individual, but you'll find your cadence, you'll find your pace. In addition to the live classes, we do have a number of learning activities that we ask students to have a look pre and post the live event. So for example, in preparation for the class, the academic will ask you to do XYZ reading, have a look at some videos, participate perhaps in some discussion forum exercises or reflection activities, and come prepared to discuss that in class. You have the class, the live class, or pick up the recording, and then be prepared to also comment post that. So this is about engaging and really understanding what that material is in a very applied manner. I'm now going to talk about the assessment. So you can see, like week 1, we start. Week 2 is the end of week 2 is a census date. Typically, census date is a university. It's a very important date in the university calendar, and it signals the dates that you can withdraw from unit with academic or financial penalty. What that means is that if census date comes and goes and you're still enrolled in the unit, but you no longer want to do it for whatever reason, you will still be liable to pay that tuition fee, the full tuition fee of $13.75, and there'll be academic penalties, as in if you fail to submit your assessment, you'll get a fail for that. So census date is very important. You can withdraw before census date without any academic or financial penalty. Don't worry, we'll remind you all the way. Now, let me talk to you briefly about assessments, and then I'll also ask our students to comment about their experience with assessments. So in any unit, you can expect 2 assessments, at least 2 assessments. Next year, we're actually going to probably be introducing a 3rd component to that assessment, and that is really to do with the discussion forum. But really what it looks like is 2 major assessments. The first one will typically be scheduled in week 3. I know that our current students now are expected to submit their first assessment for term 6, which is due now or yesterday, or I know Sabine's already submitted hers because she's already in Zurich, right? So week 3 is when the first assessment is due, and week 6 is typically when the second assessment is due. In terms of the different types of assessments, you have individual assessments, group assessments, reflection exercises, case studies. Now I'm going to throw it over to, say, Gary to comment about his experience with assessments to date. Of course, he's done extremely well academically to date. Gary.
Thank you, Lan. Yeah, whenever I enroll in a new course, the first thing I look at is what the assessment criteria is, and that helps me sort of gauge what I need to pick out during the course. But my experience about the assessments is the practical nature about it, the real world examples that we use, the case studies that are being utilized. They're relevant case studies. A recent example would be in the Be Disruptive course, where we covered areas of disruption and technologies and how that influences and can change a business and affect businesses that haven't quite kept up with the pace. So that was a real eye-opener for me, and it was a good experience to have to research, and I must just say that the research and the support that we get from the faculty, as well as the resources that are available by the university, has been phenomenal. So as much as the assignments may be intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it and once you dedicate your time to it, all that information is available. Once again, the support from the faculty and the fact that there are supplemental courses that one can join to improve your assignment and the way we do critical writing, for example. So all in all, my experience has been very positive of the GMBA.
Mm. Thanks. I'm glad you actually touched on the additional writing support and other academic support services that we offer our students. One of the misconceptions, I don't know if misconceptions is the right word, one of the prevailing thoughts about online learning is that it's an isolating experience, that, what about the support if I need it? How does that happen, etc.? Well, you've just heard from Gary that, our job is to make sure that we provide all the support services to our students, to make sure that their experience is optimal and that what the outcome that we're trying to get here is success, whatever success looks like for that student. So our job is to make sure that we provide the right level of support all the way through. Now, when we talk about assessments, I'll manage everyone's expectations too. This is a master's level, right? So it has to hit the right learning outcomes as reflective of an AQF 9, which is a master's level equivalent for Australian MBA. There are no compromises to that. We will not make any compromises to the integrity of the degree. What we will do, however, is make it very clear how we are assessing the learning. And so that starts with a rubric. It sort of outlines in detail what we're looking for and in each band category. So in Australia, which is, I know, different to the US and to the other countries, is that we have different bands. So it's fail, pass, credit, distinction, and high distinction. And there are different grade categories in each. each, and we provide that so our students understand what are the requirements for each of those bands. In addition to that, the alternatives we offer are those critical writing skills. I mean, I have to say that over 90% of our current cohort, which is over 140 students from all around the world, most of you are working professionals. For some of you, you haven't been to university for a long time, if at all, but yet you're in very senior experienced positions. So academic writing is an actual muscle that you need to develop, and it's hard. I've been in this game for 15 years. I still find academic writing one of the hardest skills to master. I'm still learning myself every single day. It's a different discipline, different set of rules to that of writing a report for a client, for example. So it's a different language and different set of discipline. I guess what we're trying to impart in terms of the knowledge is how to actually structure a really coherent argument that is substantiated. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about critical writing, that your voice is apparent there. It doesn't matter so much about the argument per se, it's the coherence of the argument and how will you substantiate this. So this is about you developing that that critical challenge to it. Remember, the literature is full of conflicting information out there. Our job there is to be discerning and to question and to challenge and to pick out bits and pieces that do support our argument in this. So that's one of the challenges. And so we provide a number of different writing facilities to help students in developing that muscle. I say developing that muscle very deliberately because you cannot expect that to happen overnight. This is over a period of time and over with sustained practice that you will master this. But master it you will, and we can see improvements all the way through. Would anyone else like to comment about the assessments and your experience with assessments? Michael.
With assessments, from a nerd productivity organizing point of view, as you say, Lan, they're the 3rd and 6th week. So that means I can plan my life for the next year and appropriate holidays and whatnot and breaks because I know when the terms are going to start and end. So that's really, really helpful, especially for work. And the second thing, and it was one of the parts I was most worried about because it's online contact, less face-to-face, but the group work actually is almost more stimulating than it is face-to-face because you meet up like this via Zoom, and it's actually really good and there are good outcomes from it. And you use Slack and numerous other tools to communicate. So I'd only add those 2 things to the assessment process.
Thanks very much, Michael. I can see that there's been a number of questions, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to address some of the questions live. I've been asked to take it a bit more slowly. Thank you very much for that. I'll try and slow down my delivery pace here. The question here is do we need to complete this webinar in a particular time slot? Our promise to you is that we are going to finish by 7 p.m. tonight, allowing other people to get on with their evening. But we can certainly take your comments and questions offline if we don't have time to address them. On this other questions that this prospective student has is, can you do 1 unit in 1 term and then skip a term and then start again? I know the answer to that. Would someone like to take a go at answering this question from our current students? Or have you had the opportunity to skip a term at all? No?
I'll go again, Lan.
Yeah, go.
So unfortunately, I got sick at the beginning of this brand new term. So I was fortunate enough to be able to take a break for 6 weeks. And it's been extremely, extremely valuable as I get back to full health. So certainly I've been able to take this particular term off from doing any subjects at all before I go back again in early January.
Yeah. And I will reiterate that. Here's the thing, you have to expect the unexpected because throughout this potential 2-year journey, life will happen. Unexpected things will happen. Health issues may arise. There might be compromises. There might be a work event that happens that is out of your control. So, we're all adults in this piece. We really get that life happens. Just be honest with us, clear, and communicate with us, and we'll do our best to make sure that we can help you and support you in that. So the answer to that question is yes, you can take a term off. This is completely up to you. You drive. You're in the driving seat. There is no set pattern or pace that you need to complete by. I'll answer one more question live, and that is there any age limit to join? Well, so thank you very much for that question, Seema. The direct entry criteria here is, well, we'll get to that slide. There is a direct entry criteria, but then there's also an alternative entry, and that is through the performance track. Age is not probably the proxy that I would use, Gus, here. It is more about work experience. So let me address that question when we're talking about the entry criteria and the performance track. So one more question before we hop onto the next slide. This is from Jeff. What times are online courses day-to-day delivered, for example, after work hours? Thanks very much for that, Jeff. So in the current model for 2019, and I know we've only got a matter of weeks left for 2019 as we enter the silly season leading up to Christmas, but currently we're offering one live event session during each week. So that is typically in the evening, although it is really much dictated and shaped by where our cohort or that class is predominantly coming from. As we said earlier, we have students from over 140 students from over 24 different countries, and so therefore different time zones are in play. When we look at the class composition, we go with the majority. If the majority of class is located in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll adjust that setting of that time, that live event, to be a bit more convenient for those students, and vice versa. However, from 2020, because we are expecting a lot more students to join us as we go into year 2 of this offering, we will be looking at offering 2 different live events or classes during the week. So one early in the morning and one late in the afternoon, to really make sure that's convenient for both hemispheres. Of course, they're recorded as well. Hopefully that addresses that question. Let's now skip on to the next. Keep those questions and comments coming, please. So we spent a bit of time talking about the curriculum and, you know, in terms of an overview, and really the takeout message for the curriculum that it has been engineered around future-focused capability development. And as Michael said, even the language of the units is outcomes-focused. We are now shifting the discussion to talk about the second unique value proposition for the Global MBA, and that is around the stackable model. So when we talk about stackability, there are a number of dimensions to this word stackable. The first thing I will comment here is that we have partnered with Coursera, as I said earlier. Coursera is a US learning platform. It is a startup. It's been in the game for about 8 to 9 years, along with edX, which are both spin-offs from MIT. They have been really dominant in the MOOC space. MOOC is a silly acronym for what we call Massive Open Online Learning Courses, and they're open courses. However, what they've recognized, as in Coursera and edX and all the other learning platforms, is that they've actually pivoted their business because they know that the learning market is now shifted from the provider to that of the learner. And we know that in the discourse of the future of work, people are looking for short and long courses. Different shapes and sizes of learning is now in demand. So we know that the power has shifted to the actual learner or the student or the consumer in this. In the same way that we are now weaned as consumers into expect on-demand entertainment with the advent of models such as Netflix and similar models, we can expect a similar way of that education providers are looking at presenting the future of learning in a very much of a consumer-led on-demand model. So when I talk about that, I call it EdFlix. And so this obviously draws from the Netflix example, and that it is all about on-demand education. We as learners should be able to learn what we want, when we want, and how much we want, right? And so borrowing off that analogy, I'm going to take you through this slide here. And so through Coursera, you can, all our courses, all 20 of our units are available in the open model. And I mentioned 20, I know we have 24 in total, but the capstone, which is the problem solving, is not available in the open space. That is only available for our degree learners. That is for a whole set of reasons, because it is a capstone. It integrates and synthesizes all that learning that the student is expected to undertake before entering the problem solving. So all the residual 20 units are available in what we call an audit mode, an open mode. Through Coursera, you can check it out. So this is like, you know, the try before you buy. Have a look to see what how it's presented. Typically what each week looks like is about 3 to 4 videos, 6 to 8 minutes in length, with the really salient points of the theory or the application or the framework. And there's some quizzes there for you as well. That's what Coursera would call the audit mode. So anyone can have a look at it and check it out. If, however, you want to sort of signal your learning through a digital badge, you can complete the open course. Now, this is what they call the subscription model. So you pay US, say, it's actually $49 US to get that digital badge signaling that you've done that open course. When we say graded quizzes, in the audit mode or the free, where no money has been parted, you can do the quizzes, but they're not graded. The difference in the open course completion at $50 is that they are graded, auto-graded for you. And then we enter into what we call single courses, and this is non-award. This is available to everyone as well. So you'll pay $13.75 to access the 4-credit unit. Now this unlocks a whole bunch of other learning opportunities and premiums for you, if you like. So this will give you access to the live webinars or live classes, access to faculty. This is now faculty graded assessments, industry speakers, mentoring opportunities, and a whole bunch of other augmented services, including local meetup opportunities. So that's what you get for the single course. And of course, the full degree is exactly the same, but that you are completing the rest of the units there. So that's what we mean by stackable and flexible. Okay, I'm just going to now jump onto the next slide, and this will address some of the questions that are coming through in relation to admission. So we at Macquarie Business School have 2 MBA offerings, the face-to-face MBA and now our Global MBA. The admission criteria for direct entry into either of these programs is exactly the same. We make no compromises in terms of direct admission, the quality of that for our cohort. So that direct admission pathway looks like this: a minimum of a bachelor's degree, a GPA of 5 out of 7, which is essentially works out to be a credit average, IELTS English competency of 7, with no less than 6 in any other band, and at least 3 years minimum supervisory or management experience. That is a direct entry path. Now, what we recognise, in fact, 50% of our cohort are coming through the performance track, is for one reason or another, some of our students didn't undertake their bachelor or are just missing or short of their IELTS or are just short of their experience. Whatever reason it is, if you don't meet the direct admission criteria, you can come through what we call the performance track. Let me explain this a little bit more so that you can understand. When you do your research and your homework about MBA products out there, a lot of the MBA products are what we call nested products. So they consist of an MBA, direct entry, but they also consist of a graduate certificate and a graduate diploma, and they articulate into each other. That's part of a nested product. So if, say, for example, you do not meet the direct entry criteria for the MBA, typically you can come through the graduate certificate pathway. Now, for the Global MBA, we have the direct entry thing. If you don't meet that criteria, you can come through what we call the performance track pathway. And this is, you need to demonstrate your mastery. So you will need to complete at least 8 units at 65%, which is a credit average or above, and then you'll be automatically invited into the degree as a degree student, and you can take out that qualification. So there are our admissions and pathways. I'm just going to now ask if any of our current students have a comment about the pathways and or the stackable model that we have. All good? Okay, I'm just now going to jump to some of the questions that are coming in relating to this. let me just take this first one here. I guess this one is related to what tools that we use for the live course. We will address that in the learner experience, but just frankly, I mean, we're using Zoom right now, and Zoom is a tool that we use for live classes. We also use Slack as well as a tool. Networking opportunities, and where do you get that from the Global MBA? So we've got, let's see, we've got Gary joining us from South Africa, Johannesburg, is that right? Cape Town? Gary? Cape Town. Gary is a management consultant working for one of the big 4 consulting firms. We have Michael, who's a public servant expert. We have Sabine in finance. Both Michael and Sabine are in Sydney, but you know, Sabine has got European connections. We've got Sylvester from Paris. Our cohort is truly global. The types of professional representation is very sector-wide. I'll go through that in a minute. This, I guess, is a roundabout way for me explaining the opportunity in terms of the network and the collaborations that are possible for you. It's very real. One final question before I move on to another slide is in relation to access to the library. As a Macquarie University student, you have full access to our library. So when I say full access, your MQ logon details gives you access to all our subscriptions. You know, we pay millions of dollars in terms of licensing fees, so you have all access to all the reading materials as a Macquarie University student. Let's now move on to the next slide. And this will give you a very good overview and address a lot of those questions in relation to the cohort that we have and the networking opportunities available. So to date, as I said earlier, the Global MBA went live in May this year. I have to say that it has been received really well. It's been unprecedented in terms of, not only the media attraction, it's constantly reported in various industry magazines, and also our partnerships is something that really differentiates what we do as well. But here's our student report card for you. You can see that the average age is 37. That should signal immediately the level of experience and professional experience that we have within our cohort. As I said earlier, 24 countries are represented. We have a split of award students and non-award, award being degree and performance track students. I will have to say that the results to date indicate that our performance track students are performing on par, if not better, academically than our award students. That's an interesting observation that's coming through the statistics. Clearly, we can do better in terms of the male-female ratio, and we will do better with that, but that's where it stands at the moment. And as it stands, it's quite reflective of other MBA programs. You can see from the sector representation that we've got pretty much great representation from every sector out there, and importantly, a global representation of students. Okay. Now, some of the other questions that are coming through relate to the learning experience, and this is where I'll draw heavily on our students to share their experience. One of the questions that came in earlier related to what tools we use. I'm also conscious that it is now 7:05, and we've got about another 5 minutes to go, so my apologies. We're going to run a little over time as we had a bit of a technical glitch at the front end. So the learning experience is that we use collaborative team tools to collaborate. This is a virtual product. Before I say any more, I'm going to jump over to maybe Sabine. Sabine, tell us about your experience. Has it been isolating? How's a community been formed? What are your experiences with this versus attending face-to-face classes, for example?
I love the abilities of Zoom. Zoom is, you know, as you can see here, we can see all our faces. We can discuss things. It jumps fairly quickly between one to the other. I don't see them. I actually see them almost as more valuable, these sessions, because they are in within an hour, and you get to talk to everyone. Then sometimes when you're in a classroom, because in a classroom you tend to get a little distracted and have private chats on the side, whereas in a Zoom it's very concentrated, and you pay attention, because that's what your time's really dedicated for that hour, and I think that's a really great thing. Yeah, so that's what I would say about that. I really enjoyed them.
Okay. Thanks. Would anyone else like to share their experience in relation to the learning experience and the tools? Gary?
Yeah, I must just say, you know, when we've got assignments that are team related, for example, I had a team where one member was in Sydney and the other member was in Canada, making use of Slack just to communicate when somebody was online and leave a message waiting for the next team member to pick up as soon as they arose, was fantastic. You can create your own little subgroup within that, so you can collaborate, exchange files, ideas, etc. And it's actually been very supportive, and it's built quite a camaraderie amongst us. So I've really enjoyed Slack. Zoom in itself is a fantastic tool when we have to get together for team meetings and or the weekly live sessions as well. You can once again also interact as we're doing now, and then there's whiteboards that you could break out into, and then there's the breakout rooms, which is a unique feature of Zoom, I believe, where in a class the academic would break the team up into groups, and you'd have a more intensive or interactive discussion amongst other students. So all in all, the technology has been fantastic to support what we're studying.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. I mean, it does really head on addresses one of the myths about online learning, and that is, you know, as I said earlier, it can be perceived to be an isolating experience. But here's the thing, I mean, this is a lot more intimate than attending a lecture with, say, 200 students. You know, so, you know, you are expected to contribute. My expectation of GMBA students is that we're all adults in this. You've come in this for a reason, and we're going to optimize that for you. And so that is that you come in prepared to have those discussions, and that we get the most out of those interactions. The tools that we use there are hopefully to build a community, and I know that you have found that experience to be the case. Slack has been wonderful for that, and I hope that we can build that out in terms of the infrastructure a bit more and incorporate that into the learning experience. But they're the two major tools that we use for that collaboration. Time zones will always be challenging. I make no apologies for that. That is the workplace that we're in. It's called a global workplace. Sometimes it is going to be a little inconvenient for you. I think that's a reality of it. I think we're at sort of at the end of all our slides that we had to share with you tonight. I'm wondering, Sylvester, if you would like to make overall comments about, I mean, you're fairly new in your journey with the Global MBA, having, I think, just done 1 or 2 units. Just give us a sort of like your take at this point in time of your journey.
Well, I'm enjoying the program, and I've taken 2 units up to now, and it's very useful. My takeaway up to now is the fact that you can use what you learn from the very beginning in your job. I'm taking the example from the unit of Communicate with Impact. And those tools like how to make a storytelling, how to have an impact in negotiation is something that I can use on a daily basis and practice right away.
Yeah, great. And that speaks to that applied nature that Gary mentioned earlier as well. Michael, any final comments or observations that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to Sylvester. What surprised, I knew it was going to be difficult, and there are lots of good benefits, and the course is designed very well. But one of the more interesting things I noticed is how beneficial it is to your work immediately after you start, and not just from the perspective that your colleagues are happy or impressed that you're doing an MBA and it shows growth, but the actual learnings from the courses are directly applicable to work immediately. I'm talking from week 1 and week 2. If you do the readings and show up to the tutorials, and do the assignments, it actually has an immediate impact. And it has for me, even just doing a presentation last week, I did Communicate with Impact last term, and I immediately implemented it. So it's the only thing that I would add. The benefit is not at the end, well, not just at the end, the benefits throughout. And certainly I've found that.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you very much, Michael. How about you, Sabine? Any concluding remarks?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Literally, you pick up even week 0 when you start to look at your lectures. Really, you just go, oh my God, and there's a world out there that I didn't even know it's there. And quite often when the first Zoom meeting happens, the first thing people say is, oh my God, I didn't know this world is out there, literally. And it's been such a beautiful journey to do this for me, and to see that other people exactly react the same way. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Sabine. And Gary, concluding remarks.
Yeah, sure. My comments are not going to be different from my fellow students. Absolutely. I think one of the remarkable things that I've picked out was that there's always a course in a specific term that was very relevant to what I was doing at that time. So having that information and that knowledge has helped me contribute even towards the business strategy, which has been fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the concluding remark that I would like to make is that the wonderful community that we are building here. We have exceptional students. It's been one of the privileges of my role is actually to get to meet and to get to know our students in a bit more detail through either local meetup opportunities. Although this is a 100% virtual or online product, you know, what we do have is our local meetups. And so what I mean by local meetups is that, you know, faculty members will travel a lot for conferences or whatever. I spend a lot of time traveling as well. And in every city that I go to, I make it a point to connect with our alumni community and also our current students. And can I tell you, our current students are the captains of industry throughout the world. The connectivity, the network opportunities are so real. So this is now a call out to our current students to say, whatever it is that you need out there, let us know, because, you know, we can connect you to this global network out there that is very real and exists and are there to really enhance every experience that you may have for them. So with that, I hope that this has been beneficial for our prospective students out there. Please feel free to contact us at any time should you have any additional questions or comments, that we'd be only happy to address them. Feel free to explore further information that is available on our website. We do hope that we can welcome you to the Global MBA community, and we thank you again for sharing your evening or morning with us, and I do hope that you have a good day or evening ahead of you. Thank you once again, and I'm going to bring this to a close. Thank you and good evening.